2, 3, 4.
Sweet, guys. I think we're ready with this stuff, so I guess let's talk about what's going on and what this way too convoluted session is going to look like. So as I think I've talked with all y'all, the whole session point is to connect 3 studios with Dante. Dante networking at MTSU is essentially what it's all about. In this, I'm designing plans for MTSU to be able to incorporate, if they choose to be able to tie the studios together for bigger sessions, for education, for teaching, audio networking, all that fun stuff. But today, the session is the important thing. We've tied studios D, E, and C together to make a 3-way studio session that I don't think has ever been done at MTSU to my knowledge. Drums are set up here in D. Bass and guitar are going to be in E. Once we hit record, we're not doing any overdubs, we're not doing any punches, we're rolling straight through. Trying to do overdubs and punches with this workflow will be very, I think, weird, as you'll kind of find out. But the biggest and most difficult room is this one, so that's part of why I wanted to start here. We are not touching the Mac in this room at all. We're not touching any of the computer. We're staying completely in the analog realm for the workflow of the drums themselves. So if y'all want to take a look, we're running this almost like we're going to tape. 1 through 12 are all of our mic inputs from the room over there. Microphones, tie line, right? Tie line over here. We got those coming in from the live room, currently going to the API pre's. From the API pre's, they're going straight into the channel line in. Goes down the channel strip, and then it's coming out of the direct outs, and that's where it gets a little more different, a little different of workflow. Out of these direct outs, instead of going to the DAW in where it normally would to Pro Tools, they are being patched to this place over here. This whole big mess of cables is everything coming out of these first 12 microphones, channel strips, all that fun stuff. It's patching out of this producer tie line right here. Tie line 5 through tie line 16, coming out and going into this. Now this is Army 12 mic D. It's got mic pre's and stuff, but right now we're running it flat as a line input because we already have stuff with mic pre's and all of our processing that we want to go to tape already done, right? It's this converts it to Dante or audio over IP, whatever you want to call that. That's kicking out to the next room. At this point, actually at the Army, it's not only kicking to that room though, it's also kicking to this. There's a 3-way split off that. It's going to E, it's going to this, and it's going to C. Here we have the headphone station and one of the record stations, which Sadiq is going to be running today. All those are coming here. We're going to multi-track this whole thing. He's going to be adjusting all of the headphones for each of the rooms, including this one, because if you notice, in here, we have the 12 drum mics, but we don't have any bass. We don't have any guitar. Whoever's sitting here won't be able to hear that unless we make some kind of change. So one of the headphone mixes is actually going over here. Via, it's coming out Dante. This is a PCIe card, which is how it's getting into this. Ultra low latency kind of stuff. It's kicking out a Dante signal to this RedNet AM2 box. This is typically a headphone box, which is actually what the musicians are going to be using for their headphones. But it also has line outs, which is great. So we can take the line out and kick it right back down here to these first 2 channels on the producer panel, and that gets us right back over here. So that's what the other 2 patches are. They are coming from the producer panel, and they're going to channel line in 2324. We don't need to record them because they're being recorded over here, they're being recorded elsewhere. But this will allow whoever's in here to listen to both the bass and the guitar. And the reason it's in here is because this PCIe card is super fast. It's going straight from the preamps to that. There's no extra steps along the way other than whatever switch in this building it's hitting. There's no other stages of conversion, there's no other pieces of gear in between to slow it down. It's super fast. Comes into this, goes to Pro Tools, goes back out of Pro Tools, out of that, straight back to wherever the headphone mixes are. It's the shortest route possible, rather than what we'll see in Studio E, which is what I originally tried, which was to send it to Studio E, have everything mixed on the console in the Pro Tools rig in E, and then kick to musicians, but that ended up being too slow. So in here, In some ways, this is a little more simple. We don't have all that mess of all of those cables. We just have a mess of other cables. Again, this room has bass and it has guitar. Now, like I mentioned a moment ago, off of that RME, it's splitting to 3 different locations. It's going to that headphone mixer. One of the other locations is it's coming here. It comes to Ferrofish via Dante, ADAT out into the HDIO rig. And now all of a sudden we have multi-tracks 1 through 12 of the drums, all right here. So in here will be a second recording of all the drums. Now, they might be 12 milliseconds late in comparison, but whoever's in here can sit and do their own little mix. And this is monitor path because we already have it everything's amplified to line level. It's coming in line level. Pro Tools will record it at just the input. Now to get it back into the network so other places and other people can hear it, once again, we're patching out of the same producer tie lines just in this room. Patching out the DAW outs to the producer tie line. ADAT is sometimes slow for its conversion process, so there was a thought that we could use an analog DB25 snake, which the Ferrofish has inputs for, to actually make that conversion step faster. Turns out it didn't make it any faster, but it was already set up, so I left it. Didn't really make a difference. The 6 inputs from this room, the 2 guitars, the bass, and the 3 talkbacks, all back onto the Dante network that can then go wherever it needs to. So that's how it's getting back to the headphone mixer to be able to record there.
Right, tell us when you're ready for the next one.
Yes, sir. We're ready when you are. The Flintstones, baby.
Yabba dabba doo.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in here late last night trying to get stuff ready, but Studio C still had some issues. I could route stuff in and from Studio C, and I had it enrolled in Dante Domain Manager, and all that stuff was good, but when I would try to record drums in C, I didn't get anything. Like, there was just no audio, and I was like, this is not good. I don't know, what do I do? And I found out that I had yet to put them in the same clocking group. So glad that was fixed actually really easily. Just one button click away, is like everybody always says. In Studio C, I wanted to run Light Pipe the same way, to have the multi-tracks there that way. However, it's locked. The back of that case is locked, so I couldn't get in. But it does have Dante Virtual Sound Card installed. So I was able to pull up DVS and get the multi-tracks in that way. Whoever's sitting over there is gonna be doing a live to 2 mix. Are y'all familiar with that term? I know you probably are. Both of y'all? No? Live to 2 mix meaning you're getting the tracks in as they're happening, right? Like they're playing stuff down. And whoever's over there is going to mix them and record a 2 mix while the tracks are being performed. So you get one shot. It's like if you were mixing it for radio or broadcast TV or something like that, right? Pretend like it's going straight out to stream somewhere. Once the moment's passed, you can't go back and fix it. So I had to make a custom aggregate I/O. The weird thing is, I found out in 1 through 8 was right. And then 9 through 15 was like 32 through like 47 or something like that. Weird. Okay. It was skipping in banks of 8 in ways that like wasn't supposed to skip. I'm like, what is going on? Like Dante was routed 1 to 1. I had the board routed 1 to 1, and the first 8 worked, and I could get levels on the first 8. I could not get levels on 9 through 16 or 9 through 15. You know what? For now, we're gonna go 14 for now, just to see if this works. And so 14 apparently is 46. Some interesting stuff about this is because these are 2 different rooms, clocking becomes an issue. I don't know how much y'all have had to mess with clocking before. Not across? So
you have one master or both? You have to have one master.
That Ferrofish is the master. So on the Dante networking side, you can choose a master clock of whatever you want it to be, right? Whichever the device is. Usually you want any preamps or A to D conversion processes to be your master, because as closest to what's being listened to and what's being recorded and stuff like that. Now, the thing is, that's coming in Light Pipe. The studio is typically set up to, run off of the master clock of one of the hardware pieces over here. So you also have to change that in Pro Tools. You have to go in Pro Tools and say, hey, I don't want you to run off the word clock. I don't want you to run off the internal clock or anything else. It needs to run off of the optical clock, because the optical clock is our input from Dante over here. That's how we're going from Dante into this system. So if we want all the Dante pieces to work together and we want this piece to work with the Dante stuff, we have to tell it clock off the Dante. Now, that does raise an interesting question, because Studio C is in a different subnet, which runs off of the different stuff. Y'all were both here the day we were doing some of that, the first set of testing. Dante usually runs multicast to send out its clocking, right? So one thing can send a bunch of different places and everybody can hear the clock. However, you can't send multicast signals across subnets. So with certain software from them, you can send a single unicast signal across the subnet to a new master clock in that new subnet, which then distributes it across that subnet, which is kind of cool. And they call that one the boundary clock. So there's another ferrofish actually sitting over there in C right now that's acting as the clock. It's currently connected to nothing else. It's only being a clock right now, which is kind of lame, seeing as it's like a $3,000 or $4,000 piece of equipment. It's a clock. First and foremost, I want to thank both of my advisors, Michael Hansen and Frank Baird. I'd like to thank my family who've sat there through a lot of my talking that probably made no sense to them. I want to thank everyone that's here today for this session. That's been huge. Sadiqa Anderson, Mark Smith, Danny Maloney. I'd like to thank Mac Plow as well. He's helped me a lot with different stuff. Christian Hand, the one behind the camera right now, definitely thank him. Aaron Walden. Hey. You already know, man. Love these guys. It's great to have a good team.